All of us have grown up hearing the classic stories, right? One of the classic stories that I am very fond of is that of a rabbit and a tortoise. And I have my own ways of narrating that story to my two little daughters. So I start the narrative like, once upon a time, there was a rabbit and there was a tortoise. And then one day, rabbit goes to the turtle and says, turtle bhaiya, please मेरे साथ रेस लगा लो. And turtle says, पर मैं तो बहुत स्लो चलता हूँ, मैं हार जाऊंगा. And then the rabbit says, एक बार try तो करो ना, please. So, that is the way I mold my narrative, I mold my persona when I'm in front of my kids so that the story becomes engaging for them and they get the moral also, right? Moral of the story. So, but while I'm in office, my persona would be completely different while narrating the story. It will be completely professional. But yeah, I'll be again narrating a story because everything around us, if we see our stories, right? All of us over here, we all have those big books inside us, all those story, all the fond memories that, if narrated properly, can inspire so many people around us. We recording this podcast right now is also a story. So storytelling is an art, I think, which can be taught, and that is why we have storytelling coaches. So hello everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Renaissance with Swati. And today I have with me Haritosh Srivastava, who's the founder of the Confidence Storytelling Hub, and he coaches professional entrepreneurs and everyone out there who wants to learn what is storytelling. Hi Haritosh, how are you?
Hi, Swati. It's an honor and pleasure to be in your amazing podcast. So, looking forward to a fascinating conversation.
All right. So before we start, Haritosh, saw some videos on your LinkedIn channel, and one of the videos that I found really interesting was that when you went to a school and
Yeah,
you were telling the girls that, "Oh, shout out, tell your stories, don't be quiet." How engaging was that? The energy was awesome. So would you like to elaborate on that?
absolutely. Thank you so much. So, what happened is last Friday, I went to one of this foundation called Navjyoti Foundation, which is run by Dr. Kiran Bedi's team. And there we had an amazing experience. We went taking to some of the classrooms. There were young girls. You would have seen the video. And typically, what happens is people go and try to be the teacher and tell all the things. But I said I want to do something different because all the kids learn in a different way. You can't just be another teacher. I was there only for 30 minutes. So I said, okay, let's have fun and let's raise our voice. And when I was thinking about that, it didn't struck me. But I said, okay, we are going to do an experiment. I'm going to count till three and you all are going to shout, and that's what you saw in the video. The girls just shouted out, and literally some people who were outside had to put their no fingers on ears because it was so loud. But then I said that no, girls, in your life you will find situations where the word will tell you that no, don't say anything, don't shout it out. And I want to tell you, I give you the permission to shout out because this is exactly where you need to shout out. You will meet people who will try to suppress you. You will meet colleagues who will try not to give you the voice. That time you need to own the voice. So while this was a fun one, I didn't start with these big lessons, but during the process I was like, wow, I think this is really the need of the hour to empower them because the kids are so talented, so bright, so amazing. The only thing they need is a little bit of support in terms of enabling their voices. So that was amazing experiment.
That's wonderful. And like you rightly said, finding your own voices, because like you said, many of the girls in the country or around the world also are sometimes told that not to speak. Even at homes, they are studying or while they're in the corporate world, they're asked not to speak up. Finding your own voice is true and important because once you do that, only then people will actually hear you. So, coming to your story, Haritosh, would you like to tell your journey, how you finally landed into storytelling? Because, story is one thing and storytelling is another thing. And I think storytelling is something which is an art, which is a learnable art, because all of us are not born to be, good storytellers, but we can be if we take help of the right coaches.
Sure, it's a very interesting question, and yes, this is a thing that I am still exploring, and the more I talk about, the more I learn better about my own story. So I'll take you in a short way. So I was born and brought up in a small town called Jaunpur next to Varanasi, which I'm sure most of the audience would have not heard. Um, and born in a middle class, lower middle class family, but I had something which the whole India has, that is the aspiration and ambition. I wanted to do better in life, though at times I felt that I'm not meant for doing public speaking and storytelling. I still persevered and I did the India's best career, which is engineering. So I did my engineering. I was fortunate enough to get placed, campus placed, and I started my corporate journey in 2007. And then something happened in 2008 which changed my perspective. So up until then I used to think that no, you need to be very good in technical skills, and if you know technical skills, your career can be on a really good trajectory. But in
Mhm.
2008 something happened which changed my perspective. So I was less than a year into my corporate job, and my boss asked me, Aritosh, you seem to be doing very good technical thing. Why don't you take the next presentation, the quarterly presentation where we have all the stakeholders, and you have been doing great work. Why don't you do that? Now I am less than 1 year into corporate, so I can't afford to say no to my boss. So I said, okay, boss, I'll do it. Now I can still vividly remember that was the year 2008, and from outside I was all suited, booted, decked up, showing that I am very, very confident. But we all know what happens inside it. I
Of
was
course.
super nervous. My heart was almost coming out of my body. I was trembling, and I started the presentation. There were about 40, 50 people in the room, and yeah, I finished 1 hour presentation in just 15 minutes, and that was a big flop, and it felt to me as if the art should open, and I should get inside. It was that bad, and I couldn't I remember for next few days I couldn't actually make eye contact with my manager. I felt so embarrassed, and that was the year of recession, great recession, and I had this nightmare that what if I'm fired, not because of my technical skills, but because of my poor communication skills. So that was my first encounter of learning about communication and public speaking. And from there on, I went on the journey. I spent about 17 years. So even though I was doing very good job in technical fields, I always make sure that I'm attending all possible trainings and webinars and seminars to just really learn this skill because I really wanted to. Then, about 9 years back, I joined an organization called Toastmasters, which also changed my perspective when it comes to public speaking. And after spending some time there, I went deep dive and I realized that there are this is a learnable skill, as you said. Storytelling and public speaking is a learnable skill, and the more you learn, the more you practice, the more you become better.
Right.
So this kept on happening. I was improving myself until 2020. I remember I had come back from US and I was on to my next assignment. I went to UK, and it was just in a week of me reaching UK. We know what happened in 2020. It was COVID
COVID.
time, and yeah, for the next about 10 months or so, I was all alone in a house, and that time I had lot of reflections, lot of time to think, and time to leisure time to say. And I started getting deeper into the things of self actualization. What do I really
Hmm.
want to do? Even though I loved doing work in corporate, somewhere I felt that I'm not able to contribute more. I want to impact more and more people. So the idea of having an alternate career started there. I wrote a book, Small Town Bigger Dreams, which also became an amazing bestseller, and that also gave me a lot of confidence that yes, even though I'm not from that background or no the high elite class writer, my book can also become an bestseller, which
Right.
means that there is place for people like me who can help people, and especially people who really resonate with my own journey. So from there, the journey started. Then I started doing a little bit of mentoring and coaching people on weekends and out of working hours and all. And then it yeah, it got me, and I got so stuck into it that over the period of time I realized that this is what I want to do. So yep, in on 30th of April, I decided that yes, this is a time for me to go full time
Ni-
with my resignation. And on 21st of July of 2024, I came back to India, and yeah, I've been
That's a bold
doing the
move.
full time storytelling and public speaking coaching
Wow.
since then.
No, that's a really bold move, pursuing something
Yes,
like this, which is considered an out of the box career in India, right? At least in
yes,
India. Coaching people don't hire coaches that easily. Obviously, it is changing now, but a few years back, it was not the case. We still think that, like you said, right? We get goosebumps, but we're not allowed to show it. So we get nervous. I also remember days when, you know, uh, I had to go on that stage and I was feeling nervous. There were butterflies flying inside me, but then
yeah,
I could not show it. My face had to be, very, very confident. And when it was, this is a story of my school days. And after that, debate, when I went to my teacher and asked her that, were you able to see that I was very, very nervous? She said, no, you're looking confident. So, that is how public speakings help you. So, like you said, you studied in a Hindi medium school.
yes.
Then, from studying in a Hindi medium school, and were you a born speaker? As in, did you always speak out in schools or
Not at all. I
colleges?
mean, yeah, I don't know how many of my schoolmates will believe me, but I still remember I had this inclination towards doing public speaking since I was in school times, but that doesn't mean that I was good at it. So I still remember that we used to have this newspaper. So we are supposed to read some headlines from newspaper, and
Okay.
it used to be 4 or 5 headlines. You write it on a
Right.
paper, stick it in front of your head, and just read. And even that felt like a terrible experience. And my no I will get so nervous, and my voice will not come out, my legs will tremble. So even though I really wanted to, because I love that thrill of everybody looking at you and you sharing
Right.
something, but I
Right.
was not born with that. So I really had to struggle my way, and learn my way, and we have made a lot of mistakes, and that's how I get into. So I was definitely not a born storyteller and speaker. And this is what I said, that if I can become a full-time public speaking and storytelling coach, anybody can do, provided they are willing to do the work.
Nice, nice. So, what according to you is storytelling? Because see, all of us have, like I started in the beginning, right? Have been listening to stories from the time that we are born till now, right? What
Correct.
exactly does storytelling as a profession mean?
So storytelling is very simple. Storytelling is where you have a series of events that you share with the audience for a very specific purpose. Now, the purpose could be that you just want to entertain people, you just want to have fun. That is one very simple thing. Or you want to make your kids sleep. That's also a purpose of story, right?
Right.
That is what is popularly known and most of people think about. But a story could also be that you want to inspire your audience. A story could also be that what you see in the ads, people are
Hmm.
selling through stories. You have advertisement, you have marketing,
Right.
a lot of that.
Right.
You want to
Right.
inspire your team. And I mean, one way is that you become a dictator, but nobody's
Hmm.
going to like it. And the moment they get an alternate chance, they'll go through that
Right.
path. But when you become a role model by telling your own stories of struggle, people will relate more. So in every field of life, if you're doing, let's say, if you are a startup and you want to get a investor, the best way to get the funding is by telling a very captivating story of why this
Right.
product is so important, and what the potential this product has got, and what is the growth opportunity with that. That is much easier than telling all the features and benefit. Most other people won't get it anyway. So if you look at it, storytelling is everywhere. And my favorite quote is that no, in Three Idiot, Amir Khan said that no, we are surrounded by machines, and I call that we are surrounded by stories everywhere, and you just have to have the right story antenna
Right.
on, and you can find stories. In fact, if I take the example, for this interview to happen, we had to really struggle and
Right.
through various technical challenges. At that time, it is frustrating, but now after a
Right.
few days, it will feel like a good story to tell anyone that
Okay.
yeah, you have to be patient and you have to learn that what is possible, what is not possible with particular tool, and that becomes a story.
Everything is a story, and like you rightly said, to pitch yourself,
Absolutely.
right? For example, I'm doing podcasting, and to pitch myself, Haritosh, please come on my podcast. I have to give you a good story, right? Why
Yes,
Haritosh should be coming to my podcast. So yeah,
absolutely.
that's wonderful. So you have
Absolutely.
to share your stories. You have to tell how you are feeling because unless you tell your story, nobody will get to know what you are capable of, right? If I take the example of corporates, then I tell to my teams regularly who are sometimes afraid to speak up, how what will my boss think or what will the customer think? I tell them, don't worry, speak out. If you are correct, then everybody would listen to you. But then again, there's an art of storytelling, right, in a professional world.
Absolutely.
So would you like to touch upon that? Because speaking in a school in front of children and speaking in front of leaders is different. So would you like to touch upon that?
Absolutely. Speaking in front of school is more of you want to have fun, but where you are in corporate, it has to be very clear why you are telling that story. Because you can't just randomly tell any story. Every story that you tell has to have a defined reason and purpose behind it. And how you tell story is also very important because there are many methodologies. But one of the things that is very, very important is setting the context of the story. Then in every story there is a challenge or some problem or conflict that has to be pointed out,
Mm-hmm.
and then it has to have a cure, and this is where typically your product, your services will come, which will come as a cure.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to show the journey, which is the change that happens, and ultimately there is a carry out message. So this is the 5 C's formula that I teach now in my community: conflict, cure, change, and carry out message. So I'll give you an example. Let's say the context is that no 2 years back our team was really struggling with this new module that was provided to us. It was a very very tight deadline and team had no idea what to do. At that time our product team suggested a new tool which has recently come into the market. So the team went on to do the research, and after all the processes we find that the tool was really good, and we applied the tool and it
Right.
immediately changed the way we were doing things, and we were able to get 40% more productivity. And that led us to believe that no, we just don't have to confine by
Right.
what we are doing, we always have to think out of the box. So do you see there is a
Yeah.
context of what happens, a problem,
Right.
big problem, and then you have a cure of that particular product, then you have the change, and finally the carry out message. So it is a very simple template, but when you apply that it becomes very beautiful, and that is how
I,
you can,
yeah.
and instead of this cure of any particular tool, you can put your own products, your own services, your own tools, and that will really sell.
So, does storytelling apply only to speaking, or is it about writing also? Because the things that you explained, right, it
Yeah,
made me remember that, in our school exam, when we were asked to write essays, or even in offices when we write emails, then if we do not start properly, if we do not give the context, we start
yeah,
randomly, we do not give the body correct, we do not end it correctly, sometimes the message is not passed on. In schools,
absolutely.
and numbers got cut, and in offices, it just makes the message does not pass clearly. We have
Correct.
so
So I
does it apply to writing as well?
absolutely 100%, and these are not the same thing, but it is very very correlated. So story writing or script writing is very much related to storytelling. There are only a few nuances which are different. So for
Hmm.
example, when you are writing a story, uh, you are generally not very much constrained by how much long you can write or how much time you have. But when you are
Mm-hmm.
telling a story, you generally know that okay, I have got only 2 minutes to share the story. So that's one thing. Another thing is telling the story requires you to deliver, and deliver means public speaking part of it, which is also different from writing. So while you are writing, you have little bit more freedom, little bit more creativity, but when you're delivering you can't just keep on blabbering because then your audience will be bored out of your presentation, and you won't get that. It is very very correlated, but there's slight nuances when it comes to storytelling versus story writing.
Okay. So, like you said that you ventured into, you were 17 years into IT and
Yes.
then you ventured into public speaking, and then finally storytelling. So, how did you know that you were meant to do storytelling?
How do I know I was meant to do storytelling? I would say that's again a story in itself. I remember couple of years back. Nothing against corporate world, but somewhere I was feeling that I am getting onto the verge of a burnout where I was doing what I was supposed to do, but I was not
Mm-hmm.
getting the joy out of it. And I remember I was doing all these coaching and learning and sharing. And this was one Saturday, which I woke up around 5 a.m. And from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m., almost for 12 hours, I was on my chair, attending the session, delivering a session, doing interviews, almost 12 hours continuously. And I remember because I was physically exhausted. But I realize that I'm mentally 100% active. I can still go
Wow.
on for next few hours. And that is when it hit me that no, if there is something which can keep me so active mentally, I would rather pursue that. And then when I started doing that, people started giving a lot of feedback that no, they got a lot of value out of it. They were able to. So there was somebody who was able to get a job. He was struggling to get a job. There was
Wow.
a coach who was trying to share his story, and once I mentored him, he got no kind of a viral post. So when
Wow.
these results started to come
Right.
along with this particular experience, it made me that yes, I can help people, and especially I'm very passionate for India and the way India is going. So it also
Right.
made sense for me to help people, especially Indians.
That's wonderful. But do you think that India, like you talked about that you were in UK and then you pursued this as a full-time career and you came back to India. So India traditionally is like, why do you need a coach? Why do you need a coach for anything? They will never hire a coach, right? They will say that, okay, leadership, public speaking, you can learn it, okay. Just go on the stage, face your fear, and you will come out of it. Do you think people are coming up as, people come up to you
Me give
for
you some
things, right?
historical context as well. Like, no, all the great speakers that you hear, like including Steve Jobs, including the big people, had some or other coaches and mentor who helped them structure, who helped them deliver. That is a proven fact. But even if you go back into our history and tradition, you see there was always a teacher or a coach or mentor or acharya associated with
Yeah.
with the families who were there to help them
Right,
with all the aspects.
right,
So the whole
right,
coaching profession is quite noble and going on for long
right,
time.
right.
And recent times, why this is becoming so important is that people are now realizing that no, if you go alone, you can generally hit a roadblock because you don't even know what your challenges are, what you need to improve upon. But if you have an independent coach who can tell you that this is where you tend to become boring, or this is where it is not no, contextual, or this is where you need to keep it brisk and fast versus going in slow, that's when it becomes so. In general, I can see that in the last decade or so, people are becoming more and more aware of this. That no, especially when you are in India, you are a
Mm-hmm,
growing economy and you want to do a lot of international trade, whether in terms of career, in terms of business,
mm-hmm.
in terms of cooperation. You need to be really clear on what you're speaking, what kind of stories you are telling. So that is when the importance also goes up. So I can see that a lot of corporates are now. I think a few weeks back I was in a corporate called Phosphor who were AI based AI and data based company, but they were also looking out how their leaders can learn more about storytelling, because ultimately when you combine data with storytelling, it becomes super powerful. So even in those cases, data storytelling is getting another no, very popular stream. So there's a lot of stats when
Right,
it comes to storytelling,
right.
data storytelling, leadership storytelling, product storytelling, founder storytelling, and it is getting really really popular even in India.
Wow. Like you touched upon AI, and now that, earlier when you used to tell a story, like you mentioned about the five C's, you will write everything. But now people, like we see, are more relying on ChatGPT, right?
Right.
Anything, just ask ChatGPT and write it. So, how does that make you feel as a storyteller that, with the advent of AI, how is that going to change the storytelling?
I think
Kids.
the AI is a great tool, and I think this is like everything in the world. Storytelling is also getting better with AI, because earlier you had very few options who can give you feedback, who can
Mm-hmm.
really help you craft. But now with you have this AI agents coming into, they can help you craft as well. However, they are not going to be the direct competition of any coach or any storytelling, because ultimately we are still communicating with humans, and humans connect with humans through emotions. And so that is something that AI still is learning. I won't say it is not learning, it's getting better at that. But if you get a feedback directly from human, it becomes much more connecting. So this is where there's a lot of scope, and like everything, I think I am a firm believer in technology. So every time there's a new technology, of course there are naysayers, there are critics, but people who adopt technology and use it in their own
Mm-hmm.
way, they are far ahead of the journey. So even for my own community,
Mm-hmm.
I'm part of a tool called Udly. I'm one of their ambassadors. So it gives us so much of value in terms of, no, how was your eye contact, what was your pace of speed, what were some of the filler words that you're using. If we combine that with the specialist or expert at coach, it becomes even more valuable. So we either have to embrace it or we'll get perished.
All right. That's obviously we are either have to embrace it or we'll get perished. That's wonderful. So, like you said, establishing connections.
Yes.
So, how do we establish connection while telling a story? How do we make sure that the people listening are actually listening to us? We're able to maintain that connection.
Hmm. Very good question, Swati. Here, how do you establish a connection? And I think one of the best way to establish a connection is not by showcasing all the great things that you have done, but by showing your vulnerability. Like if I just say that, okay, I was always great at public speaking, I always won all these awards
Right.
and all,
Right.
good, but it won't connect you as deep as when I share my story of almost getting fired or not able to speak in front of all the school people. That's
Right.
when we connect more with each other. So I think one of the best way is that, no, we can showcase our vulnerability as a strength. And when we showcase our vulnerability as a strength, others also connect because they have also gone through, like when I shared my story, you also shared that when you had
Yeah.
to actually do the presentation. So this is how
Right.
we connect
Right.
more with vulnerability than on strengths.
So do people come up and share their vulnerabilities out? I mean, because sometimes people are afraid to share their vulnerabilities, right?
Yeah, I say that you have to, and I think I did that, put a reel sometime back, that no, you need to share what you are comfortable with. So, and there's also a thing called, you want to share your scar and not your wound. And I'll tell you what exactly is that. So, what first thing is, whatever you're sharing, because it is internet,
Mm-hmm.
whatever goes there stays there forever. You don't want to share anything that you are not comfortable, whether it's a positive or a negative thing. If you're not comfortable, I am not going to say you must share. I'm not a 100% believer. You need to share only what you're comfortable with. I am very comfortable with sharing that, okay, I was not a great public
Right.
speaker to start with.
Right.
I failed at that presentation, but it was something which happened yesterday. I won't be sharing that because I will be embarrassed at that time. I had my own
Right.
journey. Similarly, you want to share your scar and not your wound. And the difference is, let's say you had some incident happened which you are still recovering from, you have not yet found the solution, and you are struggling with, at that time I would rather have you go to a friend, a close aide, or a therapist or a doctor who can help you on that, versus telling it out there with public, because there's nothing for them to learn. But let's say you
Mm-hmm.
went through certain episodes, you had your own healing, you had your own thing, and then you had certain realization. At that time, it has become a scar, which is which is not troubling you
Oh,
right now, but
right.
it is a mark for you to be that, yeah, I went through this particular experience or story, and you want to tell that story because there might be some lessons for your audience. So ultimately, why you do storytelling, except when you're trying to do entertaining and all, you have always a point why you are telling the story, and
Right.
you don't want to tell a story which you're still living and you have not figured out the solution, because there's nothing for the audience to learn from. So you want to tell, you want to be vulnerable, but it's better when you are comfortable, and it's better when you have learned a lesson so that people can get something out of it.
And I can so relate to that, like you said, connection with whatever you say. You're so good at storytelling, Paritosh.
Thanks.
So I was actually connecting to whatever you're saying. So, a few years back. So, like I said, I told you, right? When I was in school, initially I was a shy kid, but then while I was used to sitting with my classmate, my partner, who was very, very outspoken, I started going on stage and I was very, very enthusiastic and never afraid of being on the stage. But then all of a sudden, in office one day, I had to give a demo and I just froze. I could not enter, type anything on my keyboard. I just literally froze. I could not
Yeah,
say
yeah,
anything. I just had to barge out. And then, that memory of, failing, that memory of not being able to deliver and just freezing stayed in my mind for quite long. And at that point of time, it was a wound, and I was not comfortable sharing it with anyone. And I used
yeah,
to feel that why it happened with me, why I got anxious or why I got nervous. I was not able to make it out, and I was not able to understand why it happened. Why, how it can happen to me, that kind of feeling. Why
yeah,
me? And then finally, I took help from certain people, and now I'm able to freely tell it because now it is no longer a wound, it is a scar.
yes.
I've healed from it. So that's why
Absolutely.
it was
And
so
what's your
relatable.
message out of that whole episode?
That message out of that whole episode is that, nothing is permanent in my life, in the sense that all the struggles, we all go through certain struggles, which at that point of time seem that, we'll never be able to come out of it. We are
Yeah,
stuck here. But then when you look past, when you overcome that and you look past a few years back, you say, it was just an episode. That's okay. It happens. You can always come out of it. And that actually gives you a better perspective that, I have passed one hurdle, I can pass any hurdle out there.
absolutely. Yeah, that is beautiful. And exactly, if somebody needs to hear that, because yeah, all of us are going through various struggles at different point of time. So once you hear that, no, and this is something that we all need to learn, that no, we are not unique. I mean, this is a good and bad news. Bad news that people, everyone thinks that they are unique and their challenges are unique. So the bad news is no, you are not that fortunate. But the good news is that no, there have been people on your own shoes, on all the kind of struggles that you have faced, and if you can get learning from there, your recovery or your journey to redemption will be faster, right? So I was just reading this quote, and this was beautiful, that somebody mentioned that sometimes for decades nothing happens, and sometimes even in short time decades happen.
Wow, that's beautiful. So would
Yeah.
you like to give some examples, of people who came out to you, share their stories? Uh what was the most beautiful story maybe that you think of?
Oh, there have been so many beautiful stories. I'll tell you a couple of stories. So there was this HR person. I don't want to name anyone, of course, for the privacy reason, but there was this HR person who joined my confidence storytelling hub, and since childhood, because he came from Maharashtrian background, he had lot of self doubt and lot of fears, and then he started attending the program, and then after a couple of weeks in one of the sessions, he said that I want to share something. I said, please go ahead. They said that no, 2 days back we had this company's annual celebration, and I'm so happy to share that I not only went on the stage and spoke and I got a lot of applause. I was able to actually inspire others to also come on
Wow.
stage, and that
Wow.
felt was very very inspiring. So that is one such incident. There have been people who have gone through a lot of struggles, and when they tell the story, like another client of mine, she is also a senior manager in one of the company, and now on her way to quit the job and become a coach herself. And she
Wow.
shared one day that no, when they were going through financial struggles, she went to her office, and when she came back, because they couldn't repay some of the money and all, literally all the items from their house were thrown out, and they were literally on the street. And for next few months they really had to struggle, but that time they all came together as a family, and they learned the importance of, financial management, and from there they didn't stop anywhere. So that was
Nice.
again a beautiful moment, not only when that happened, but when she was able to share that story, others got
Right.
really inspired. So many such incidents. So that is, so empowering when there have been a life coach who was a great fashion designer, and she had worked in top fashion brand, and then she got married, and afterwards she became a typical housewife, and she was really dying from inside because she always wanted to do something for her career, and for years she struggled, and she was having a lot of issues, and then she found a spiritual guru who helped her come out of all the depression, all the negativity inside, and then she restarted her journey as a life coach, and then she has really inspired, hundreds of people since then to become life coach. So that is another inspiring journey. So there have been many, many, and I
Right.
feel that I hope I have been able to help them in some or other ways, in a short way, that they feel their story has become better.
Okay, so who all do you think that, come to the Confidence Storytelling Hub to you when that person should come to you? What is the right time? Because people don't
Okay.
know, when to approach the coaches.
Yep, yep. So first of all, there is not a specific ideal right time. Whenever you feel that no, you want to learn this skill which has been there. I mean, if I look at it from that perspective, that no, uh, when there was nothing, then there were stories. When you had the fire discovered by humans, and people used to come in the evening after doing all kind of
Right.
hunting, what they used to was not do the PowerPoint presentation and all the things. What they used to do was share stories, and that
Right.
was the way to pass the information, and that is why our brain is literally hardwired to listen to stories. So there have been experiment after experiment done, we show that when you tell stories, there are as many as 7 to 8 different parts of the brain that get activated, versus when you tell us data or something, only 2 or 3 parts gets activated. So it's a very natural way for us to connect with another human being, to share our information, to build the repo. So anyone who is on a journey, who wants to become better at connecting people, like for example, if you're a coach and you want to have more client, one of the things you
Hmm.
need to have is a very compelling story, your brand
Right.
story, so that people can
Hmm.
connect. If you're somebody who is a working professional, and especially somebody who's in the middle management or
Hmm.
senior management or at CXO level, you need
Hmm.
to inspire your team, you need to deal with a lot of customers, you need to maybe make a press release, or attend
Hmm.
podcasts and interviews and all.
Hmm.
At that time, the best way to connect with people is again a good, compelling story. If you are a business person or a startup or an entrepreneur, the
Hmm.
better way to get a funding or investment or to sell your product is to tell a story, emotional story that no captivate your audience. So those are all the kind of people. Again, if somebody else doesn't belong to this category but is still eager to learn, I'm very happy to talk with them and see if it is the right fit.
Nice. That's wonderful. So when these people come to you, who are afraid of speaking, or what advice do you give them? Do not be, do not have that stage fear, or, how to be confident for someone,
Mhm.
for example, introverts, right? If somebody is
Right.
not comfortable, then what tips do you give them?
Yeah, for everyone, the advice is different, but I think for introvert, first of all, the reassurance that no, you don't have any problem. In fact, the history shows that introverts have been one of some of the most amazing speakers, including Steve Jobs, Oprah, uh,
Okay.
Bill Gates. All of these are introverts if you study their life,
Mm-hmm.
but being introvert and extrovert doesn't define how do you speak publicly, how do you tell your stories. That is
Okay.
a skill, so you can learn, and The way to learn any skill, and specifically storytelling, is first of all you need to work on the mindset. All of us have got a number of limiting beliefs, and you need to
Right.
replace those with empowering beliefs. So we do a lot of exercises like visualization, we do affirmations, we do
Wow.
small exercises in our group
Okay.
to recognize our past achievements. A lot of time we are so much focused on the future that we don't take a moment to realize that, no, look at myself, look at me 20 years
Right.
back, and where what all
Right.
things I've done in last 20 years which I didn't even imagine. And that gives a lot of confidence boost to do more amazing things. So there are certain exercises and there are certain tools that we work on mindset, and then there are other steps of how do you find stories, how do you craft stories, how do you deliver in an impactful way, how do you continuously grow and get feedback. So there are various steps that we work on.
That's wonderful. Really wonderful. You're empowering people to find out their voices. That's really wonderful.
Exactly, and that is why I think I didn't mention that but I took it as a mission to empower 1 million people by the year 2035 in helping them discover their true voice and confidence.
Yeah. So like when we were talking earlier, you were saying, right, the famous quote from Jeff Bezos that you do not regret anything. So you'd like to share that as an ending statement for
Yes,
everyone.
Jeff Bezos, I have studied a little bit about him, and one of the things that really impacted him is the regret minimization framework. So when I was in that crossroad, that should I continue with my corporate journey or should I quit this and try out this, coaching journey, storytelling coaching journey? I came across this video by Jeff Bezos who says that, no, anytime in life when you have to take a decision where two options seems very confusing to you and both of them are equally good, you imagine yourself as 80 or 90 years old, and from that perspective think about in which decision are you going to regret less. So I imagine myself that if I am 80, 90 years old and I look back at my journey of, no, being 40 and not taking the plunge, not trying it out, would be a bigger regret than continuing on the coaching journey and making impacting people. So that is, I believe this is one of the amazing framework, regret minimization framework, where you have a decision to make. You're
Right.
confused between two paths. Imagine yourself 20, 30, 40 years down the line, and from that perspective think about that, where will I regret less, even if I fail or even if I succeed.
Wonderful. And what's the harm in experimenting, right?
There's
What's
no
the harm
harm,
in
yes. If you
yeah.
don't Actually, if you don't experiment, that's a bigger harm, right? So there's a great
Yeah,
quote we say that if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So if you didn't ask that, can I do podcast? The answer
of
would
course.
always be no.
Of course. Wonderful. All right, Haritosh. So any last key takeaways for all the people who are listening out here?
Thank you, Swati, for having me. I think my last parting lines for all the audience here would be that, no, we are going through this particular time where there is a lot of divide happening. There's a lot of things happening on social, political, geological things, and this is the time where we need to step up. And that is why I say that the world needs better storytellers, and it starts with me and you.
Oh, and start with all of us. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Aritosh. It was really wonderful listening to
Thank
you,
you.
listening to all the beautiful perspectives about storytelling and connecting, most of all, most important of all, connecting with you and not being nervous. Just be at ease. That's wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you, Aritush, for agreeing to be my guest. And thank you for spreading and helping people out there to achieve what they want to. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me and really enjoyed the conversation and we really deep dive into certain aspects. So great job.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll keep on learning from you.
Same here.